How's it going, everyone? I hope my audio levels are okay. We're about to start. Just testing a few things before we get going. Just give me a second here. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just wanting to get started now. A little early here, out in Japan. A little tired, but it's not too difficult of a stream. Probably won't be going the full length of an hour and a half like we've been doing lately, but we'll see where it goes. Today we'll be covering the concept of knockbacks, but while we wait to get started, I'm just going to paste a few links into the chat for anybody who's new here. We do have a project repository on GitHub. I'll link that here. And then we also have a group. We'll have a Discord server for this project. Let's see. Where is that? Oh, here it is. That is. Cool. Difference between fruit roll up and fruit by the foot. Fruit roll up is like a candy tortilla, right? Fruit by the foot is just like fruit measuring tape or something. Yeah. For Swift, that's cool. I've never programmed in Swift. Okay, make sure everything's good here. Don't want to dilly-daddle around too much. Okay. Fantastic. Well, just to cover a little bit what we did last time, we basically implemented a hit reaction and set up hit stun. We set up hit stop of it after that. We did a little bit of jump physics. And if we could like load up the game here real quick. Hopefully my controller works. I'm using a different controller today. I should have tested this before the stream, honestly. But yeah. Let's see. Okay, looks like it works. We can jump, everything. So yeah, you can see from last time that sound effect does not come from this. It comes from something else. I'll show you in here in a second. Oh, you probably don't hear the sound effect, so it's fine. But yeah, we have the hit stop working. You can see the hit shake as well. But what we're missing is actually the character being knocked back on hit. Almost all fighting games have some form of what's called knockback or pushback that happens when you hit them. It's just an impulse that's applied, and they'll slide a little bit and then slowly decelerate. And let me demonstrate that to you all with my other game, well, the game I've been developing for years, called Fearless Knight. It's actually quite an old version, but it'll do quite well. You can see when I hit a character, especially like attack like this, there's a brief period of what's called hit stop, and then they slide backwards. And if I step through that for you, you can see the character shakes for a little bit, and then they start moving and slowly decelerate, as if friction is slowing them down. So I'm going to show how to implement that. And actually, probably from here on out, I will use Fearless Knight as kind of example, so you can get a better idea of actually what's going on and associated with existing fighting games. Cool. So the first thing we're going to have is an amount of knockback, right? And we're going to have an amount of deceleration or friction that slows the character down. So far, we haven't dealt with friction yet. One of the difficult things friction is it tends to be modeled with a fractional value, something you like multiply a sub one value by a whole number or any number to reduce the amount of velocity and iterate on that until it becomes close to zero and to hit threshold. That's how many games would implement it. But as mentioned before when we started this project, we're not going to be using floating point numbers. We're going to use fixed point numbers, effectively just integers. So how do we deal with something like that? How do you model that same kind of thing? And I'm going to show you how to do that basically. So the first thing we do is that we're going to we need some value for that knockback, right? So we're going to go ahead and add it to our game data. That'll be the quickest thing to do real quick. So just jumping in, let's see. Do you think strive over to the hit stop compared to the games? It's just is what it is, I guess. I don't really have too strong opinion on that. Maybe one day I'll have a stream comparing different games and stuff, but not today. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, first thing we need to go to our game data, right? So where was that? Do I even have that open? I don't think I have that open. So let's just open up character data. Actually, the thing is, we don't have any properties for our hits yet, right? That's something we're gonna have to add. We'll get there. I'm not gonna do that today, actually. So I forgot we need to get to that point. But for now, we're just gonna have a fixed value for our pushback, and we're gonna go in and replace that at some point. So we're just gonna implement the execution side and not the data side. Data side we'll do later. So let me hold and write that down so we remember. I don't know why I've overlooked that thing. I always talk about it during these streams, but I've just not gotten around to it. So let's go ahead and just add implement hit properties. Okay. Cool. Let's go. So, we have this reaction system which handles basically the hit stop and hit stun. We could put our knockback physics in here, but the thing is we already have a physics system that handles, has its own data for updating position and things like that. So we might have, just thinking about this, we might have two conflicting systems, right? If we updated movement on one side and this side is like what should come first, that kind of thing. So we'd run into that kind of issue. So just to make things a little simpler for now, let's go ahead and implement that stuff in our physics system. And our physics system right now is still in the game simulation. We haven't moved it out or anything. So you can see we just update position and velocity based on the velocity and the acceleration per frame. One thing we could do with knockback is give an initial velocity and have the character slide, and then reduce that velocity over time. If we just use this current physics component's velocity field, that means other things could potentially override that velocity. We're talking about fighting games. Fighting games are very precisely controlled, right? Designers really want to kind of nitpicky set everything. If you use this shared velocity field for everything, I hope you can see where the problem comes. Something could potentially override that velocity and negate the knockback instantly. Just because as we're implementing more stuff in the game, we might have reason to change the velocity, like when you hit the wall or something. And you might run into a problem, for example, where you hit the wall, even though the character can't be pushed back more, that knockback needs to start being applied to the character. That's another thing, the wall knockback we haven't got to yet. We'll get to that as well. Fighting games, actually, characters slide backwards when you're against the wall usually. So I can demonstrate that. Did I close the game? No, wait, open the game real quick. Yeah, I can demonstrate that part too. We're not going to do that today, but I just want to cover that a little bit so that you know what's coming in the future. Wall mechanics are a whole thing. And it's something we do need to actually consider as we're building this knockback system. So, did it crash? Is that what's going on? Of course, nothing goes right for a stream. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I'm going to just demonstrate the wall physics real quick with knockback. So as you can see, as you're not against the wall, the character you're hitting slides back. Almost all fighting games will have you slide backwards if you're pushing up against the wall. That prevents you doing things like infinites or just there's a lot of good game design reasons for having your the attacking character be pushed back from away from the wall. Just knockback is this for a reason. 'Cause obviously that would be too strong if you just stood there and you could just keep attacking over and over and over again. It's one of the balancing factors of a fighting game, how much knockback occurs. But we're not going to be doing the wall stuff today. Anyway, for now, what we'll do is we're going to go to the hit event real quick. And where we apply our hit stop and our hit stun, right? We append all these properties. We need a new property here. We've got hit stun, hit stop. We're going to apply a new property. We can call it knockback for now. And we're going to set arbitrary property. How much velocity do you think we need? Let's say they move, I don't know, 5 pixels per frame. Maybe it's too slow. Let's do 10 pixels per frame. Well, 10 units per frame, because in our game, effectively 1,000 units is 1 pixel. So anyway, just trying to think about visually what we want. So I'm just going to set that to there. We don't have the knockback property yet. We actually need to go to our game event structure to do that, right? So where is that? Hit events. Yeah, let's go to hit event. And let's say, where is our knockback? Oh, here it is. So let's turn in, set knockback to an I32. And then we're going to use that knockback to actually do the physics now. Okay, just going back to our physics system. So kind of the easiest, straightforward way to do this, again, I said, was basically we could just apply it to the velocity. So let's just say the velocity gets overridden every frame per character, right? And we're only going to want to move them back when hit stop is over. We don't want them sliding when the character's frozen. So one thing we could do is, first of all, let's get the reaction data. Oops, sorry, I forgot something. We set up the event, but we didn't store that in our reaction component. So that's another consideration we have to think. Do we want to store the hit back, not back, in our reaction component, or do we want to store it in our physics component? You know, there might be reasons one way or the other. It's just something to consider. If I had modeled this game in more of like a traditional way, where you have a giant object, you wouldn't have to make that consideration. It's just one giant object with a bunch of fields. But yeah, let's just go in and add it to where's our reaction component? This should be, yeah. So let's just say, so we still need to store this component per entity, because we just put it in the event, right? We need the event to be copied over to the reaction component at some point, right? So going to our reaction system. So we can hit events, and we need to set, effectively do the same, this boilerplate kind of stuff, right? So for now, we're just setting it to the receiver. In the case of a wall, we'll actually need to set it to the attacker. Okay. So we have this knockback being set. And then going back into our physics system, what we're going to do is just apply that knockback to the velocity for now. We'll be changing it. Just bear with me. So before we update the position of velocity, we're going to update knockback. Again, ordering here matters, but we'll continue to discuss that here. Just to make this a little less annoying, we're going to just get a copy of that. So let's see, our reaction component is going to be equal to the address of this. Well, pointer to that, basically, right? And then we could just do this. because we're going to use it multiple times. And then we can do, we're doing var here because we're going to do, well, let's start with a const, and then I'll explain why we switch it over to var. So because we're just going to read for it for a minute for now. So we're gonna add, no, or we're just gonna assign the knockback for now. So we're just gonna override the velocity with our knockback, so that when if we update the velocity first, and the position, this frame is going to be updated. If we put this afterwards, that means next frame. The next frame, the velocity will affect position. Either has consequences, but for now we'll just do this. So yeah, we just need to assign this. So apply knockback to the velocity. Okay. So this is the most naive, straightforward way to do this, just to get the ball rolling. We'll see what happens. So in theory, right, the velocity should be updated, and the position should be updated. Oh, oops. I'm sorry. Velocity is a vector, right? So we need to just add. We're only talking about the horizontal component on knockback right now. We're not talking about the vertical component. So why is it? Anyway, so that should work, right? I think it's .x. So we're overriding the horizontal component for now. Okay. And my input is not working. Great. Oh, you're right. The problem is we're overriding this every frame. So when you add a condition, right? If it's not equal to 0, then we'll apply knockback. Another way to do it is we only apply knockback during. Another thing we probably want to consider is we only want to apply knockback when there's hit stun. So let's do that as well. You might want to have knockback last longer than hit stun in certain cases. So it's really kind of depends how you want to view it. For again, there's consequences like, what if your knockback? Yeah, you don't necessarily want. Yeah, it really depends on the design of the game, right? So for now, let's just say it happens only during hit stun for this game. So if hit stun is greater than 0, then we'll apply knockback. And knockback's not 0. Or we can just say, yeah, this is make sure knockback is not equal to 0, so we don't override our velocity when there's no knockback. You can see the character basically gets knocked away. It doesn't stop. That's because we don't have any friction or any kind of deceleration. So let's just do it again with frame step. You can see as we're shaking there, hit stop, and when it's over, the character starts moving away. So that's the basics of knockback physics. Well, velocity. But we need some kind of deceleration, right? We want that knockback to eventually go to 0. So we can reuse that field in the reaction component knockback and just decrement that over time. One way I like to do it is just do it by fixed amounts, right? So after we've updated the velocity, we want to decrement that knockback. The problem is it's currently a const, so we don't change it to var. And how much do you knock the character back? It depends on the feel, right? And another thing is to consider is like, do you want the physics? Do you want this stuff to be tunable on a per move basis, on per character. But the thing is, you probably don't want it on a per character basis because that means different characters will get knocked back a little different amount. But yeah, I digress. For now, we'll reduce the knockback, and once knockback reaches some threshold, there's a potential too. Another thing we have to point out is knockback might be inverted. You might have attack that might pull the character in. So knockback can be both positive and negative. So we'll go in and check to see if the character is under a certain threshold, right? So actually, we wanted absolute value because we want to see if it's under a certain absolute value threshold. So currently, we don't have. I think. Do we have standard? Yeah, we have standard. So there should be an absolute value function, right? Or is it? No. Say standard dot. Is there math dot absolute? Okay, so absolute int. So we're going to say the threshold is under 1,000, right? Well, so since we're subtracting by 1,000, we need to make sure that as long as our knockback value is above 1,000, never below it, then it's fine. So let's for now, let's just say, let's give it a const here, okay? A const, just so we name it back. Deceleration. That's going to be equal to, let's say, 1,000, right? So it needs to also be an I32. And as long as the knockback value is above 1,000, we're fine. There is a problem where if it's less, so we'll probably put limits on that somewhere. So yeah. Would knockback per attack type be too granular? No, actually. We'll have a knockback on every single attack. What we'll be setting is a knockback velocity. The knockback deceleration is something that would be probably too granular per attack. That would be much harder for designers to tune, and especially if you want to turn it feel, like how the game feels. If the deceleration is too fast or too quick, it might feel off. You want that kind of, and generally I've seen that property be fixed for all attacks in the game. But the velocity is something you absolutely want to set per move. We just call it knockback, but what we're really talking about is really the knockback horizontal velocity, the initial velocity. It's just kind of a shortcut. Okay, so we know we're not going to set knockback velocity less than 1,000, right? So we can do this. This should work. So sorry. Yeah, we'll be smart about this soon enough, but let's see. Okay, so once we hit this threshold, we're just going to set knockback to 0, right? Okay. I think that's right. So we got this knockback deceleration. Actually, we'll probably move this to a global property. At some point, I want to have a set of global combat properties that we can use to tune the feel of the game. And this will be one of them. Let's keep that something in mind. Okay, so we reduce the knockback, and then we might set it to 0 once it's hit a certain threshold. Yeah, okay. I hope it's clear why it needs to be less than the knockback deceleration. Okay. Another way is to check how close it is to 0 or something. Oops, what did I do here? Oh, is that really can return an error? That's hilarious. Okay. I didn't real why can absolute value return an error? What the heck? How do I give me a second? I didn't really know that could return an error. I guess it's technically it can happen. Okay. Well, that's funny. Does that work? Well, anyway, let's just do work around real quick because sometimes you got to work around language issues. So it's not going to work because this is actually. Hopefully we can. Yeah, we're gonna have to do try it where this is called too. That's annoying. Okay, let's do this. Oh, anyway, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. I like that things that have errors we can have to deal with. But okay, so let's try our deceleration. Oh, you see a problem there? The character reverses and comes back. That means something's wrong with our code. It means it's overshot. The deceleration stuff is overshot it. So let's reduce the amount of deceleration real quick. So going back to our physics system. Let's set it to let's do this. Let's reduce by 1,000, but we'll change what the threshold is. We'll call it like we'll do 1,000, and then we'll say knockback threshold. I don't know a good name for it right now, but let's make that just to be safe. 2,000. Yeah, just a test real quick. So probably we can make this work now. Well, let's just go back to this for a second. Okay. So you can see that when we hit the character, they just slow down, eventually end. We can make it a little smoother. You see that it's kind of jerky a little bit. Well, one thing I need to do is add a quick restart, so we can reset the situation, or at least move the second character around. Yeah, so we look at this again. I attack. They shake. They fly back, and they slowly come to a stop. But it's a little jerky because our threshold's a little too high. Something we have to tune for sure. But this is one way we can avoid using something like a fractional value to decelerate over time. It's still very linear looking, right? Like it's not perfect. But yeah, this is a thing you can start tuning. Like you start tweaking these values until you get to a point that feels good for your game. It's one of those like feel things. There's not absolute values that work one way or the other. there's a range of things that work depending on what your game is. The part of the problem too there is we had a lot of hit stop applied, right? Because there's a lot of hit stop applied just so we can visually see what's happening. It feels wrong to like accelerate that kind of slow way. The general rule is when you have a long hit stop, it implies a really big hit, and you expect the pushback velocity to be much higher, right? So yeah, that's the basics of that aspect of the thing. One thing we haven't covered is facing direction. Characters will be knocked away from the character direction there, basically the facing direction of the attacker in general. There's a lot of subtle bugs and stuff when it comes to that. We'll be covering at some point. But now, basically, I mentioned before, I don't necessarily want to override the velocity. I want to kind of update the position based on the knockback in the same way we're doing it with velocity instead of overriding it. Just so that maybe we have for example, like, I don't know, maybe we have a character that has some way to modify their pushback, right? And that would need to affect the velocity. Knockback. It could affect the knockback as well, but you could see potentially where if we're just overriding the velocity all the time, maybe it's not great. It limits on what we can do. So instead of updating the position or velocity like this, we're going to update the position by the knockback directly each frame. So forget what we do here, right? We're not going to do that here. We're going to move everything after our normal physics update, and then we're going to apply the knockback. So we're going to update the position directly instead of velocity. And actually, we're going to move this stuff inside. Okay, so we got the same fields, the same properties we're setting before, but instead of updating this velocity, what we're going to do is something similar here, where we like add the velocity of the position, but we're only going to be affecting the x component of it. So we'll be adding the position to the velocity. Adding the knockback to the position each frame. And then we need to apply the deceleration, right? That'll happen after. So for the next frame, it applies less knockback over time. Effectively, it's going to look the same, but again, if we had some additional velocity applied by something. Though it did go much shorter. Oh, because we do, okay. But yeah, I mean, that's the basic idea of that. We don't have any properties so we can adjust this thing on a per move basis yet. Something we need to get to. And something else we need to do is, let me write down in our planning notes, just so I don't forget it. So far we haven't supported facing direction yet, right? Generally, 2D fighting games, your characters can be always facing the opponent. When you jump over, you turn around, you're facing them. That is something we're going to have to add very, very soon so we can actually, when we're implementing these systems, these physics systems, we're actually doing the correct thing. Right now, we're just assuming the characters facing each other, and you're never actually crossing over anything like that. So yeah, that's pretty much that on the knockback stuff. It's not that complicated. Um, there's a lot of tweaking you could do, but of course, for the future, we need to add per action knockback properties. I just wanted to get the physics stuff implemented effectively today. Um, and let me just go to the game start here because we have the character set in these startup positions, right? Let's move it a little bit over so that it's easier to mess with right now. So yeah, just knock them back a little bit. So you can see the problem right now. Even if on this side, they'll get knocked back that way, which is not the correct behavior. Did I have the game? I guess I closed Fearless Night, but I can show you there what's supposed to actually happen. So yeah, let's say next time I'm going to we'll handle flipping and stuff like that. So you can see like that, and then when I jump over, the character goes that way. And if I hit them, what do I have attack that does it? I don't think I have a crossover attack with this. I think I took that out on this version. Might have it. Yeah. Yeah, I think I took out all these crossover attacks for this build. Yeah, I think next time what we'll do is I want to implement flipping the character around. So for next stream, I want to implement flipping the character around. Where's our planning document again? Okay, so for next stream, I'm gonna plan to stream on Thursday next week. So this week, the 14th, Thursday our time. So implement flipping characters to face their opponent. We also need to implement support flipped physics. So and then so when the character flips, when they walk forward, they actually need to go left. If they are facing right, they need to walk right, kind of thing. Support knockback physics. So yeah, support flip knockback physics. So we'll do that as well. I think that's something we can cover pretty easily in one stream. But yeah, I think it's pretty good as far as what I wanted to do here. Honestly, let me pull up some other games real quick to kind of show you what I'm talking about when it comes to like making sure the character goes in the opposite direction of the attacker. Because honestly, sometimes you can hit the opponent while you're facing the other way. This is called a cross up when you're jumping over the opponent and you do that. Sometimes you can do a cross through as well, where you're actually facing the opposite direction. You're not actually facing the opponent when you hit them. I guess I can turn the audio down real quick. So let's just go off real quick. Let's go to Street Fighter. It's the easiest way to... Whoops. How do I don't want to play Vampire. I want to play... Oh, here we go. I want to do Hyper Street Fighter. Oops. I wanted to do training, actually. I just want to demonstrate this knockback stuff in a game. I want to do training, which is start. I'm going to do slow so it's easier to understand. Do Ryu. Ken. Well, it's probably easier to see on someone like Zangief, so I'll do Zangief. I hope you guys can hear me with the audio, desktop audio turned down a little bit, just in case. So you can actually, in this game, you can hit opponent while facing opposite direction. Do you see how they get pulled in like that? Certain games do this. Like Street Fighter does this, where it's in the direction you're attacking and not in the direction the opponent is from you, right? It's not like it's always like that. So also another thing to demonstrate is on a per action basis, weak attacks push them back less, heavier attacks push them back more. So that's Street Fighter, right? That's how Street Fighter looks like it works. Cross up, suck them in. Now, it's kind of a design choice whether or not you do that. Whether or not you vacuum them in like this. I tend to make my games where pushbacks is always opposite direction. Well, the direction that the opponent is, the normal direction the opponent is away from you, not based on your facing. Like always away, right? So we can check some other games and see how they handle it. Because pretty much the stream is over as far as programming goes. We'll be doing more of this flipping stuff next time. But I just want to have some fun real quick and like look at how all these things work. So yeah, let's just look at Vampire Savior here real quick. It's a game I'm very familiar with. Oh, I didn't do training again. Whoops. Okay. So, it's a training. Which character is good at crossing up? Who has the best cross up? Well, I can do it with Lele either way, so. And then probably Victor is one of the easiest characters to cross up. And Icarus is easier still, I think, but this should be good enough. Yeah. Where's my cross up attack? I have one, I think. Oh, I thought I had one. Oh, yeah, you can cross up easier when they're waking up, so I don't know if I could do that here, though. It's kind of difficult. So that's actually going to be hard to demonstrate. Yeah, I don't have anything that's a clear cross up. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Oh. I'm trying to remember who has a good cross up in this game. I think Dimitri might. The sprite size doesn't matter. It's about hitboxes, the collision volumes. Yeah, I think. Yeah. So there we go. You can see I can cross them up like that, and they get vacuum in instead of. So Capcom games are pretty famous for having this kind of thing. Whereas the tricky thing is like I'm not sure if I'm. Yeah, see, I can do it where they get vacuumed in. And then the character also gets flipped around to face the opponent, right? So even though they're being flipped around to face the opponent, they're not going towards their back direction. They're going towards the facing direction of the attacker. Now, it's a choice based on game design. It's a game design choice whether or not you have it work that way. One reason you might want to have it that way is so it's easier to combo, right? If it vacuums them in instead of pushing them away, you can connect the next attack much more easily. So if the attack actually pushes them away, you might not be in range of the next attack. Honestly, all that stuff depends on how you want your game to work. If you want people to easily connect follow-up attacks from cross-ups, you do that. If you don't, you make them pushed away. Honestly, we can put support in for both into this project so you can see how you would implement either way. I think both is important. So I might just put a flag in there for anybody to tweak. Yeah, drag. It's just the vulnerable boxes, which this game doesn't show. So yeah, that was that. I don't know if there's any other games in this collection that act differently. Unfortunately, I can't show you how it works in Fearless Knight right now because I don't think I have any characters with clear cross-ups. Cyberbots, I don't know. Let's go ahead and just close that out. There's our game. Going back to Fearless Knight real quick, I think I can show something though. Hold on real quick. Pick him up real quick. Might be able to cross up with him. I don't remember. 3 fighting game series. Okay. But yeah, let me show you something. Just turning on hitboxes real quick. You can see I can cross up. See how my game works? Characters get pushed in the opposite direction. Whoops. Timing's gonna be a little difficult. Oops. You can also see the character has hitboxes that are taller than the sprite, right? We're not just using the sprite volume, the sprite area to determine collision. We're determining collision based on these boxes, which we haven't shown visually in our project yet, but we'll get there. It was something we're going to add. So you can see where the red box overlaps the blue box here. That's going to determine whether or not a hit happened. And in Fearless Knight, when you hit, the characters, instead of being vacuumed in like Capcom games, they get knocked away. But yeah, so you could do it either way, depending on your preference, or it's more like what is the intent of your game, right? If your game is you want people to be easily able to combo after those kind of attacks, then you vacuum them in, and that has consequences, of course. Either way has consequences. What else do I have on my theme library here that I could show? I think I have Guild Gear Sign. Wow, I don't have Revelator installed. That's weird. I thought I installed that. Well, yeah, let's pop that up real quick. Oh, no. Yeah, I need to install more fighting games onto this system. Let's see. Okay, so I guess I could show Guilty Gear Strive real quick. Not Strive, sorry. Guilty Gear plus R. I think, I'm trying to remember. I think it depends on the attack. I think Soul has a decent cross up in this game. Spencer. Oh, I forgot how floaty jumps are in this game. What's my attack? So yeah, and you can see in wow, it's loud. Give me a second here. You can see like, oh, if I can get the hit right. If I hit on this side, the character gets pushed away. So that's how it works in Fearless Knight as well. Fearless Knight mostly being a Guilty Gear inspired game. That's kind of why it does that. So it's not just my game. There might be attacks that cause like a vacuum effect when you do cross up. And something you definitely can make tweakable in your game. You can make it on a per move basis. Got any squid grills over there, bub? Squid grills? Well, honestly, we're getting close to an hour here and pretty much showed everything that I wanted to show. Um, if you just got in here, you didn't see the links earlier. We do have a GitHub project for people to check that out. If they want to sync up, I will push these changes as soon as possible, so you can check them out yourself. And there's also a Discord link for our server that's where we talk about game development and this project. Well, this series, I guess. I'll just link that there in the chat. If there's any other questions about stuff, feel free to ask since we're kind of ending early today. Yeah, SG has a lot of stuff. Yeah. I will probably, this PC doesn't have my old version of Fearless Knight dev environment set up. I will have to do that just so I can demonstrate some stuff there. Pull it off another older PC. I'll do that sometime in the future so you can see all the tools I have there for debug purposes. Because we're going to be like basically doing similar stuff for this project. Yeah, if there's no other questions or comments or anything like that, I think I'm going to go ahead and close out the stream for the day. One final chance. Well, it was fun. I appreciate everybody stopping by as usual. Everyone who participated in the chat, thank you very much. Hope to see you all soon. As always, hope you enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, and if you're having just waking up, good morning. And stay safe out there. Stay cool. I know it's hot in a lot of places. Drink plenty of water. Until next time, see you all soon.